July 23, 1966. Often of 11:30 a.m. Bob Dylan sat on a worn couch, acoustic guitar in hand, exhausted. He was 25, at the peak of fame, touring Europe, and completely burning out. He'd come to Paris to hide, to escape the machinery that was consuming him, to find some fragment of normalcy in a life that had become impossible. Across the room, Brigitte Bardot sat by the window, smoking. They'd met 3 days earlier at a party, recognized each other immediately, not just as celebrities, but as people drowning in the same ocean. They'd spent those 3 days talking, honest conversations about fame, identity, the cost of being worshipped. "I wrote something," Dylan said quietly. "After our first conversation, I want to play it for you." Brigitte turned from the window. "A song? Yeah, about what we talked about. About you, kind of. But also about me. About all of us who get turned into symbols. I don't know if I want to hear a song about me. It's not really about you. It's about the machinery. You're just the lens." Dylan started playing. The melody was haunting. Minor key, slow tempo. The lyrics began. "They call you beauty, call you icon, call you dream, but nobody calls you by your name. You smile for cameras, wear the mask they gave to you, and wonder if the girl inside remains." Brigitte's hands tightened on her cigarette. "They built a temple made of photographs and lies and crowned you, queen of their desires. But queens are prisoners in their palaces of gold, and beauty burns like sacrificial fires." The song continued. 6 minutes, each verse more brutal than the last, about performing happiness while dying inside, about being desired by millions while feeling completely unseen, about the girl who existed before fame and how she'd been erased, about Brigitte, but also about Dylan himself, about Marilyn Monroe, about anyone who'd been turned into product. When he finished, silence filled the room. Dylan set down his guitar. "That's it. The girl behind the glass. That's what I'm calling it." Brigitte was crying, silent tears running down her face. "You okay?" Dylan asked. "How did you know? How did you see all of that?" "Because I'm living it too. Different version, same trap." The line about beauty burning, Brigitte's voice cracked. "That's exactly what it feels like. Like I'm being consumed, sacrificed to something I never agreed to worship." "Yeah. And the part about wondering if the girl inside remains, Bob, I don't know if she does. I look for her and I can't find her anymore. Same. I don't know who Bob Dylan is, separate from what they've made me into." They sat in shared understanding. Two people who'd been turned into symbols, who'd lost themselves in the process, who'd found each other by accident and recognized the shared wound. "Are you going to release it?" Brigitte asked. "I was thinking about it. Maybe on the next album. It's one of the better songs I've written lately." "Don't." Dylan looked surprised. "Why not?" "Because it's too honest, too true. It exposes things I've spent years trying to hide. Isn't that what art should do? Expose truth? Not when the truth is someone else's pain. Not when it reveals things they're not ready to share." Dylan was quiet, processing. "The song isn't cruel," Brigitte continued. "It's compassionate, actually. You see me, you see the person underneath, but that's exactly why you can't release it." "I don't understand, because if you release it, everyone will know. They'll know I'm broken, that I'm performing, that Brigitte Bardot is a lie, and the person underneath is barely surviving. But they should know that. The whole machinery depends on people not knowing. If we expose it, we expose ourselves. And I'm not ready for that exposure. Maybe I'll never be ready." Dylan picked up his guitar again, played a few chords. "So you're asking me not to release it?" "I'm asking you to protect me, the way I'd protect you if I knew your secrets. My secrets are in my songs. That's where I put them. Then put them in songs about yourself. Not about me. Not without my permission. Even if the song could help people, show them they're not alone in feeling this way, it would help them at my expense. By using my pain as education. That's not fair to me." They argued for an hour. Dylan, believing art should expose truth. Brigitte, believing some truths belong to the person living them. Finally, Dylan asked, "What if I promise never to release it, never play it publicly, never record it, keep it private? Would that be enough?" "Why would you do that?" "Because you're right. It's your pain. I don't have the right to share it without permission, even in service of art." Brigitte looked at him carefully. "You mean that? You'd bury a good song because I asked?" "Yeah, I would. Because your autonomy matters more than my art. Most artists wouldn't do that. Most artists are assholes. I'm trying not to be." They shook hands. A promise. Dylan would never release The Girl Behind the Glass, would keep it private, protected. "Can you still play it? For yourself?" "Yeah, just not for anyone else." "Good. Because it's beautiful. Painful, but beautiful. I want it to exist. I just don't want it to be public." "Fair enough." Over the next few weeks, rumors started circulating. Dylan wrote a song about Bardot. He played it for her privately. She made him promise never to release it. Journalists pressed Dylan about it. "Is there a Brigitte Bardot song?" "There's a song. It's private. That's all I'll say." "But you wrote it about her?" "I wrote it about fame, about beauty, about what we do to the people we turn into icons. She happened to be the person who helped me see that clearly." "Will you ever release it?" "No. I promised I wouldn't, and I keep my promises." For decades, The Girl Behind the Glass became legendary. The unreleased Bob Dylan song, the one Brigitte Bardot demanded he bury. Music historians speculated. Fans begged for bootlegs. Collectors offered thousands for any recording. But Dylan never broke his promise. Never played it publicly. Never recorded it professionally. A few people heard it over the years. Close friends. Other musicians Dylan trusted. But always with the caveat, this stays private. In 1985, a bootleg appeared. Supposedly, The Girl Behind the Glass, recorded from a private session in Brigitte heard about it, called Dylan. "Did you break your promise?" "No, that bootleg is fake. Someone wrote their own song, claimed it was mine. It's not." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. I kept my promise. The real song has never been recorded, except in my notebooks. And those aren't going anywhere." "Thank you for keeping your word." "Of course. It was your pain, not mine to share." In 1996, 30 years after writing it, Dylan was asked about the song in an interview. "You wrote a song about Brigitte Bardot in 1960. She made you promise never to release it. Do you regret that promise?" "No. She was right to ask. The song exposed vulnerabilities she wasn't ready to share. Keeping it private was the ethical choice. But it's considered one of your best unreleased songs. Doesn't matter how good it is. It wasn't mine to release. It was about her experience. She had veto power over whether it went public." "Do you still play it?" "Sometimes. Privately. It reminds me of that summer, of meeting someone who understood the nightmare of fame, of writing something truly honest." "Will you ever release it?" "Not while she's alive. And maybe not after." The promise wasn't time limited. It was absolute. Brigitte asked about the song in 2001. "Bob Dylan wrote a song about you, made you cry. You made him promise never to release it. Why?" "Because it was too true, too revealing. It exposed things I wasn't ready to share with the world." "What did the song say?" "That I was performing. That Brigitte Bardot was a construct. That the girl underneath was lost and scared and barely surviving." "Was that accurate?" "Completely. That's why I couldn't let it be released. Because if people heard it, they'd know. And I was still trying to maintain the illusion." "Do you regret asking him to bury it?" "No. He gave me control over my own narrative. That's rare. Most artists would have released it regardless. Bob respected my autonomy." In 2016, 50 years after writing it, Dylan won the Nobel Prize for Literature. At the ceremony, someone asked, "Is there any unreleased work you wish the world could hear?" "There's one song, The Girl Behind the Glass, written in 1960. Maybe my most honest work, but it's not mine to release, so it'll stay private." Because of Brigitte Bardot? Because I made a promise. And promises matter more than art. After that comment, pressure mounted. Fans petitioned. Critics argued it was culturally significant, that the public had a right to hear it. Brigitte received letters, calls, requests to release Dylan from his promise. In 2017, she gave a statement. People are asking me to release Bob Dylan from his promise not to share The Girl Behind the Glass. My answer is no. The song is private. It contains my pain in a form I'm not ready to share. Bob respected that 50 years ago. I expect the world to respect it now. Someone asked, but don't people deserve to hear it for historical purposes? No, they don't. My pain is not public property. Bob understood that. The rest of you need to learn it. In 2018, Dylan's personal archives were donated to a museum. Included notebooks, drafts, recording. Conspicuously absent, The Girl Behind the Glass. A curator asked Dylan, "Where's the Bardot song? We expected it in the archives." It's not for archiving. It's private. The notebooks with those lyrics are staying with me. But for historical preservation, some things are more important than preservation. Like keeping promises. Like respecting people's autonomy over their own stories. In 2022, a journalist writing about Dylan's relationship with Brigitte asked both of them, "What did that song mean to you, Dylan?" It was the most honest thing I'd written at that point. About the cost of fame. About what we do to people we worship. About the person behind the image. It meant everything. But Brigitte's autonomy meant more. Brigitte. It was the first time someone saw me, really saw me, and turned that seeing into art. But Bob understood that art doesn't justify violation. He gave me choice. That's the real gift. Do you think it'll ever be released? Dylan. Not by me. Not ever. I made a promise. Brigitte. Not by me either. Some truths should stay private. This is one of them. The song remains unreleased, unrecorded, existing only in Dylan's private notebooks and the memories of the few people who've heard him play it. Music historians call it the greatest unreleased Dylan song. Fans call it the one that got away. Critics call it a triumph of ethics over art. Dylan calls it a kept promise. Brigitte calls it the song that saw me and chose protection over exposure. Bob Dylan wrote a song about Brigitte Bardot. She made him promise never to release it. Summer 1966. Two icons drowning in fame. 3 days of honest conversation. One 6-minute song that exposed everything. Brigitte listened, cried, asked Dylan to bury it. And Dylan agreed. Chose her autonomy over his art. Kept his promise for 50 years and counting. The song exists. Will always exist. But will never be public. Not because it's not good, by all accounts. It's extraordinary. But because Brigitte asked. And Dylan respected that ask. In an industry that treats people's pain as material, that mines vulnerability for art, that exposes without consent, Dylan did something radical. He said no. He protected. He kept the promise. For 50 years, the song has remained buried. Not because it's forgotten, but because it's protected. That protection, that choice to value Brigitte's autonomy over artistic legacy, is perhaps more meaningful than the song itself, because it proved that art doesn't justify violation, that honesty doesn't require exposure, that you can see someone completely and still choose to protect rather than exploit. Dylan saw Brigitte, understood her, wrote 6 minutes of devastating truth about who she was behind the image, and then he buried it. Because she asked, because promises matter, because her pain was hers to control. The world will never hear The Girl Behind the Glass, but Brigitte and Dylan know it exists. Know it's beautiful, know it's honest, and know that sometimes the most powerful art is the art you choose not to share. That's the real story. Not the song itself, but the promise, and the 50 years of keeping it.